Hey, I'm Rob from JestaThaRogue.com and this is my top 5 games from 5 years ago. For the mathletes among you, you would have already worked out that is 2016, and what a year 2016 was for board gaming, and only board gaming. I mean, it sucked for literally everything else and is known as one of the worst years for constantly bad news just day after day. Until 2020 came along, of course, but for board gaming, that year still has some powerhouses still talked about today, including Terraforming Mars, Star Wars Rebellion, Great Western Trail, Scythe, The Feast for Odin, Clank, and more, all from this one year. None on my list though. If you want my thoughts on those games, check out my top 10 overrated games list. Ha! Now look, overrated games doesn't have to mean bad, it just means you rated them higher than I do. Calm down. Oh, and BT dubs, this 2016 date is taken from Board Game Geek, so if it's technically not correct where you live, blame them.
Number 5.
Now I love a deck building game, so one based on one of my favourite IPs really works for me. Legendary is a very good deck building system with its 2 currencies and a row of enemies to defeat, as well as really nice card interaction and way too many expansions. It was my favourite deck building system until Legendary Encounters Alien came along, which added events and tasks to complete, giving the games more meaning other than just scoring points and winning. This in a game system where people generally ignore the point scoring anyway, which is weird. Now, I'm not an Alien fan, I hadn't even seen the films when this game came out in 2014, so I couldn't join in with the quotes for the film. Now, I want to play a game where I can gently slip in the quotes on the IP, like a leaf on the wind. Oh, I probably should have said the IP was Firefly, that would have made more sense. In Legendary Encounters, a Firefly deck building game, players play one of the crew of the Serenity, and as well as the other standard cards in their deck we'll look at in a bit, they get a talent card that triggers their character's special ability. Characters and their own special abilities they bring to the table is a big part of the TV show, and it is in this game too. Throughout the game they can get flaw cards that trigger their negative flaw ability. As the characters in the show are flawed, mostly from past trauma or their upbringing, this again fits into the theme really well. Players will use their shiny cards to provide recruit points to purchase from a row of cards called the Bridge. This ever-changing row of cards is made of theme decks from the characters the players haven't chosen, giving the effect that the whole team is there. Players will use misbehave cards for attack points to reveal and fight the row of cards called the Verse, which is made up of not only baddies and events, but also objective cards, theming each game to a particular episode of the short-run TV show. This means you can play through the whole series in order if you like. Serenity, the ship, is the 10th character on the show, and she can take damage, too much damage, and she explodes. You lose. If all the crew are eliminated by taking too much damage, you lose. If you fail a mandatory objective, you lose. But complete all the objectives and you win the episode. This game is marked down a bit for being better when you play as a full campaign in a row. Just playing a one-off game, it just loses something. See, between episodes you can upgrade and repair Serenity, heal the crew, etc., meaning damage taken carries over and adds value and risk to each and every one you take. It means I never take it to game days, and if I do want to play a solo and co-op deck builder for 2016, well, not only is that a very specific itch to scratch, but spoilers.
Number 4.
I love a big game that looks impressive with lots of big minis, and I like it when people come over to my table and say, wow, or hey, that looks amazing. It's a nice feeling. It's not necessarily worth £200 a time, but still. I even like games like Monumental, which is just a little Civ deck building game but has loads of really impressive, if not very fragile miniatures. I did back the tokens to replace the minis in the recent Kickstarter because getting the minis out of the box is a pain in the arse, so I really need to reevaluate my life. Come On are known for their big miniature heavy games, costing hundreds of pounds on Kickstarter, and they take up the entire table and look great. I've got quite a few of them, look. But we're going to look smaller. Smaller, much smaller. There you go. In Looters, with a Z because it's cool, players recruit looters to their play area and use them to not only loot, but also attack the other players' looters to decrease their ability to loot and also kill them to get them off the table. On your turn, you recruit new looters from your hand and activate all of your looters once each. They can search, you roll a d6 for each health the looter has, and each die that rolls equal to or under their strength gives you 1 loot. This means looters with lots of health can roll more dice and potentially loot more. Of course, those with low health but high strength roll fewer dice but have more chance of getting loot per roll. So you need to attack your opponent's looters to reduce their health, therefore the number of dice they roll. To do this, activate a looter, choose a target and roll the dice in the same way as looting, but instead each success removes a health from the target. So you have to balance looting yourself because the first person to get to a target of loot based on the player count will win the game, versus attacking the opponents to make sure they can't loot too much on their next turn. But also, each character has a different ability that can do anything from destroying a single looter to wiping out the entire table. It's not perfect, you do have to rely on other players doing their bit to attack players themselves and not just loot every turn. If someone gets too strong, they can do a lot of looting on the next turn, so you need to smack them down so they can't get quite as much as they could. Of course, if you're the only one smacking, you're not looting, and it means the non-smackers are getting away with doing a lot of looting themselves. You do have to discard down to 3 looters at the end of your turn, so it's not like you can build up a massive army, but still. 3 pretty decent looters is all you need if you're being left alone. Good fun when played right though. Also, it has a jester. Yay!
Number 3.
Now, I love sports and I love sports-based games, but they are hard to get played because there isn't a lot of overlap between sports and the board game community. Can I get an F in the comments for Chaos Ball? I hardly knew ye. I also wouldn't expect non-sport fan hobby gamers to play the awesome cricket game Test Match or the legendary football game Sabutio. Even though they are both awesome, but there are some sports games you can get away with. Racing games is the way to do this. It's an easy sport to understand, go faster and cross the finish line first in most cases. It's part of the reason Downforce is so popular even among players that dislike real-life car racing. But that game came out in 2017, so let's go back a year from that. In Flamme Rouge, players controlled 2 cyclists, each with a unique deck. Each round, for each cyclist, you draw 4 movement cards from the deck, pick 1 and discard 3. Then the cyclists move the number of spaces shown on the selected card. That card is then removed from the game, never to be used again. Once everyone has moved, those 1 space away from a cyclist move up 1 space for free, and those with no cyclist in front of them get a fatigue card, which is a movement card of just 2 spaces. There are also hills, weather, etc. all thematically work to add more to the game. Like any deck builder, when your deck runs out, you shuffle your discard pile, but it's now missing those cards you've used to move, and it may have gained some slow fatigue cards. What works well here is the tactical nature of cycling is built into the mechanisms. If you sit out in front, you're going to be pedalling into that air, you're going to get tired. But tuck in behind another cyclist and you're getting his slipstream, which is simulated by that moving of a free space and also the lack of a fatigue card. And as the race goes on, your deck gets worse, which is simulating your cyclist tiring. The sprinter is quicker overall but can't sustain it for any length of time, and the rouleur is a good all-rounder. It means players have to constantly tactically battle to keep themselves in a good position towards the end of the race where they can break away and hopefully try and win it without tiring out before reaching the finishing line. And this is just like the real thing. Minus the performance enhancing drugs. Or maybe they do, I don't know how competitive your game group is.
Number 2.
Stefan Feld is known for making great games. From Notre Dame in 2007 to the Castles of Burgundy 2011 and of course Point Salad in 2019. Now if you laughed at that, shame on you. There are loads of games that give points for absolutely everything, but only Feld is lumbered with this unfair label. It's always used in a derogatory manner too, as if scoring points at a board game is a bad thing. And do you know how many ways there are to score points in this game? None. Ha! Suck it! In the Oracle of Delphi, players are sailing the Aegean Sea trying to complete 12 tasks first to get back to Zeus in order to gain a place in Olympus. These tasks are picking up an offering by loading onto your ship and delivering it to a temple, also picking up a statue and erecting it on a specific island. You do each of these 2 pick up and deliver tasks 3 times each with a different coloured offering and statue. You can explore one of the many face down island tiles scattered around. If it's one of your islands, you can build a shrine on it. You have 3 shrines to build on your 3 islands. Finally, you can fight monsters that are distributed around the map with a d10 die roll using your shield strength to make the fight easier. Kill 3 of the specific colours required to complete these tasks. You also have companions that enhance your actions and injury cards you need to manage, because if you get too many you could skip a turn, which in a race game like this is bad. There's a god track and you can move up to unlock cool permanent abilities for each of the gods you get to the top. Now, this is all good fun, but what I want to focus on most is the die mechanism used to make all this happen. You have a circle of 6 colours and you roll your dice which have these 6 colours and you put them on their spaces, then you spend them to take actions. So if you want to move your ship, you can move up to your movement limit and must end the movement in a space matching the colour of die spent. Picking up an offering or a statue must match the colour die, dropping one off must match 2. To start a fight, the die must match the colour of the monster you wish to layeth the smacketh down upon. If you're worried about being screwed by rolls, you can use favour tokens that can be spent to move the die to a different colour, but only 1 adjacent space on the wheel per token and only clockwise, so be careful. Now, I generally don't like race to the finish games except for actual races like my previous entry. Race to the target games like this can generally have a flat ending where there's maybe 10 minutes left and you can't win and you're done. But the mechanisms of this game, especially that dice mechanism, I really enjoy it. Is this my favourite Feld? Maybe?
And now, number 1.
Time to scratch that specific itch from the 5th entry. Solo and co-op deck builder for 2016. With the added bonus, you can also play this competitively. I like Star Realms. I played it a lot on the iPad and PC when it came out and had good fun comboing the cards and allowing the digital version of the game to add up the numbers and money and attack, as well as track faction combos. I never bought the game though. I'm just not a fan of space stuff. It doesn't appeal to me. Now, if only they could place those lame spaceships with cool dudes with swords. In Hero Realms, players get a deck of cards, either a generic identical deck or a unique deck based on a character. I always use the Thief, obviously. Cards are always played for 2 resources: money to buy new cards from a market that go into your deck, attack cards deal damage to a target. In a PvP game, you can attack your opponent, try and bring their health down to 0. Players can play champions that stay in play and have abilities that can be activated each turn, but these can be killed by attacking them to remove them from play. Guards sit in play like champions, but must be attacked before the player can be attacked. Of course, you can also play guards to regain health. And the best thing about this system are the factions. The game has 4 factions, each with a specific specialty. If you play multiple cards of the same faction on a turn, they trigger abilities, making each other better. So do you specialise in 1 or 2 of those factions, or do you have a nice general deck, which is usually on average very good, but very rarely great? The best thing here is I've played it quite a bit competitively, fighting other players and solo against challenge cards, and really enjoyed it. Despite having the game for 5 years, I still haven't had a chance to go through the campaign, to the point where I own both campaigns available, and I believe a 3rd one was announced recently. But it's on my list to get to, and I will this year, and you know what? I'll enjoy it. Thanks for watching. A quick honourable mention to Mechs vs Minions, which would have been on this list, but I don't get a chance to play campaign co-op games. What is your favourite game for 2016? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, share and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, Insta, Twitch and YouTube at JestaThaRogue, or find the blog at JestaThaRogue.com. I've been Rob, aka JestaThaRogue, and I'll see you soon.